Hey everybody, welcome to CastorsCorner.com. I'm your host Cleo, here for another toy of the day. You can check out a full gallery of these figures up on CastorsCorner.com. You can follow us. We are at Castors Corner on all social media, and you can check out the Cornercast podcast. New episodes every week up on Apple Podcasts. We're catching up. We're calling this season 2. We've got some fun episodes coming, so go subscribe to that. Subscribe here. Really just helps out, and you don't miss anything if you subscribe because you get the notifications. So what do we got for you today? So we're taking a look at Captain Carter here from the Marvel Legends What If wave, and Steve Rogers, the Hydra Stomper here. And so I figured this would be a good kind of combo, so I was kind of waiting for this to come in to be able to do this one, and I got a lot of thoughts on these two. I think this is one of the best Marvel Legends they've produced. I think there are a few issues with her in a couple different avenues that can be addressed. And I just have to get the other parts because they're in the box. Okay. So Captain Carter here in all of her Union Jack glory there. She is a phenomenal figure. She can go literally toe-to-toe with Chris Evans. She's actually slightly taller, as you can see, than him. They make a really good pair. She's a little cartoony, of course, but that likeness to Haley Atwell is just exquisite. Like, it's one of the best face sculpts they've done. Even though it's technically an animated figure based on an animated design, I think it still looks really good next to the other MCU characters. So she's got that going for her. So where are the major issues? She is pinless, which is great. I didn't have any problems with her articulation. She's got double knees, double elbows. She's taller than the average female figure. She's got sculpted details for her costume. What is missing, though, is there is no peg on the back there. So even though her shield doesn't come with a peg option, if it did, or if they do, we'll need another one to get it to be able to put it on her back. It just does not hook there. And since it's a repaint, that stealth version of it is coming out, I'm going to assume, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to assume it's the same thing. Shield does kind of go on, and it's easy to take off her gloved hand here, slip on the shield, put the hand back on, so you're not stretching anything. You're not, kind of ruining or breaking anything on the shield. So that's good. I think for her, and it could be wrong, I think this shield feels a little bit small on her. Because of her stature, I would have expected something slightly larger, especially considering the size of Chris Evans' shield. This is pretty much, you can kind of see it is almost one ring shorter, smaller than his. So it's not as large as his is. So I'd say that's a little criticism for me. I think she deserves something a little bit bigger. I would like the peg there. And her foot articulation is heavily hindered by the overlay on the boot. So it's kind of hard to get her in the right position because you can't go back any further. So some of the posing from an engineering standpoint is a little bit difficult with her trying to get that balance because she is a taller figure. You want to balance those joints out, and you have very limited range of mobility, and it doesn't feel, when I'm moving it forward, there isn't that much room. So you're very limited in her foot motion movement. And so I had to use this stand, which actually the pegs don't really stick in that well. The pegs here were drilled out a little bit too big. So it doesn't stabilize her as much as I'd want it to. Those are just nitpicks. Like, they are very minor details for an almost flawless figure. Even the hair doesn't really hinder her being able to turn left to right, look up. It does hinder looking up, but not looking down. So you get a really good range of motion on a figure like this, which is something that I'm excited about. Like, it's It's good. It's fun. I mean, she is, I think, might be one of my favorite figures in the wave. I have different thoughts about everybody. I think everybody has a different reason. But she looks the most like an MCU character that can just kind of slot right into the rest of the MCU, which is great. The Hydra Stomper does not fare, in my opinion, as well, especially at the increased price point. I think it was like 55 or 60 bucks almost. With tax, shipping, and all that. I got mine through Shop Disney and Big Bad Toy Store. And both of them were, decently priced, but not, I think it was about 55 plus shipping. So almost $60. He is massive. Don't get me wrong here. He is massive. But the joints just don't feel as secure as I would want them to. They feel a little soft. They feel a little bit gummy. And I do worry about he's got the click joints. I do worry about moving him too much. I don't have a lot of confidence because of the heft of this figure. He is a very, very heavy figure. So I've got some concerns about the joints versus the size of the legs and the arms. They're a little bit big and they're a little bit heavy for what is underneath the carriage here. And so that worries me slightly. It's not a big one because I don't see being able to really pose him out other than kind of standing. The flight stand certainly could not support a figure of this stature. I didn't try it because I was worried, but I figure we do this for a reason. We're going to put it through its paces, so let's give it a shot. So first of all, that is not going to fit around his waist or really anywhere on his body, but I'll give it a shot. I'm going to actually take the pack off. I got thoughts on that too. So let's see. It definitely will fit around one leg. All right, so we'll get it around one leg, around the hip there. So there we go. And no, this is not gonna go well. Try it one more time. We got it locked in. Put it in the center of the stand, and you can see it really is just ticking down until it kind of hits the ground. I don't think I wouldn't trust that. I definitely would not trust that. So there is really no way to get him into a good flight pose unless you built your own armature to kind of have him on. The head does slightly go back. You can get him into a little bit of a flight pose like that. The rocket does attach. It is a very light attachment. Too much moving or too much kind of jostling with it, it pops right off. It does have the starbursts that fit into the rocket pack here. So just putting on these starbursts, you'll see, pops off. So you do have to be very careful with it. But I mean, they look good, right? They definitely look good. They do articulate, so you can have them like that, or you can fold them out like that. You can get them into some flight poses, but again, there's no real way to kind of get him kind of hovering. There's just no way to do it. There is no opening canopy like we saw with the toy box version, so there's no mini Steve inside. I'm sure I hope we get a mini Steve at some point that can stand next to this guy. My other criticism for it is, famously, she is shown riding on the back, right, on his pack, going into battle with him. Now, that's where the problem lies. First of all, the hand that kind of would hold on is holding the shield. And I could flip it around, of course, and have it holding. But her grip is very, very open. So it doesn't really allow for her to actually hold on to the handle itself. So that's number one. It's just kind of a very loose, so she can't really hold on to the handle. This way you have to have her holding it on. Can't have her grab onto it. It kind of comes from underneath. So it's very precariously balanced. She is also too tall, actually, to be able to actually ride in the correct position on the back of Steve's back. So this is kind of what you end up with, if I can get her into that position. The footholds don't have pegs, so there's no way to kind of keep her feet there. They're about half the size of her actual foot. So engineering wise, if I can show you, try to show you. So there's the foothold there. Only about half of her foot fits into it, really just the toe part. And there's no, it's molded for it, but then I wish there was like one more piece that you can kind of see there where it kind of the heel and above it kind of fall off. So there's no really way to keep her on there. And then when you actually do get it in the right position, she is not balanced enough. She doesn't bend forward enough to get into that flight pose that we see in the cartoon. And I mean, we've seen that for years, right? Figures don't, you can't recreate what's going on in the cartoon on there. So this is kind of the best I've gotten right there. That's the best it'll look, and I'm holding everything together. She doesn't really fit. So she looks good standing next to him, for sure. I think that is the best pose for it. Lay these down. And I took some pictures, and there's a picture of her, so standing next to it, looks good. I have a picture of her climbing up the front, almost like she's going to go give him a kiss. That looks good, but I was holding the figure, just so you know. I cropped it so that you couldn't see my hand, but I was definitely holding it in place. Here's the thing. I think these are really well sculpted and designed figures. I don't think they work well together. That's number one. Number two, they both have some flaws, but I don't think it takes away from the overall aesthetic that they bring to the table with the What If and the MCU. So I think it's a really good set. I would rather have seen this as a $70 set like they did with Ironmonger and Obadiah Stane. And I wish that they had done a better job with the backpack, to be honest with you. I wish it fit better, a couple extra clips, something like that, and extended it just slightly. I think if they made him about 1.5 inches taller, this is a massive figure. You can see it's 1.5 times the normal, and it's as wide as her, and she's a large Marvel Legend. So I think he had to be, I don't know, 1.5 inches taller, 2 inches taller, and proportionally spread out so that you can accommodate her like you did in the film, in the show. This does accept a gun blast here, smoke blast, starburst, any of those things, so you can attach it there. So overall, I would say they're both worth picking up. I wouldn't skip either one of them. But just know going in, you're not going to get perfect figures, or you're not going to get everything you want. And at some point, I could see them upscaling him, or changing the backpack a little bit slightly so they work together, or coming up with some alternative pieces that kind of help them work together. So I think it's a good start. And I think that aesthetically they look great. In pictures, they look amazing in pictures. So check out a full gallery of them up on castorscorner.com. You can follow us. We are at Kastor's Corner on all social media. You can check out the Cornercast podcast. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to this channel. The more that you subscribe, the more cool things we get to do, and then we get to share them with you. And that's been the best part of this 365 days of toy reviews. Thank you again for watching. As we say every night on our podcast on our show, Jaxie, we miss you and we love you and we wish you were here. And for the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow night here on castorscorner.com for another toy of the day. Have a good night, everybody. I gotta find the stop button. Have a good night.